You know, the crazy thing about the Cracker Barrel situation is that it's not the first time we've seen something like this happen to a corporation, and it probably won't be the last. The issue with these companies is that for one reason or another, they think that they are allowed to do whatever they want with impunity, with no consequences whatsoever. And what's wild is they're so out of touch, they don't even remember who allowed them to be successful in the first place. That was, is, and always will be the consumer. So the question becomes, why do they continue to make these moves that ultimately would be self-defeating? I would argue it's because they are hiring and investing far too much money in individuals who have a bunch of maybe letters behind their names, but don't have any common sense whatsoever. Common sense is something that's very much in short supply these days. And we saw, yet again, Cracker Barrel become the victims of their own undoing. They hired this individual, this CEO or whatnot, who decided they wanted to do a ultimately soulless rebrand, right? They wanted to scrap the image, the iconic image of the guy on the porch sitting next to the barrel, right? Why? Not sure. Honestly, this opens up larger questions about why these corporations continue to do these rebrands in the first place, right? We've seen so many logos ultimately surrender any sort of originality and pizzazz whatsoever. And we're seeing these incredibly bland, blank, like stock image logos these days. And it begs the question, what is the end goal? Is the end goal to strip any sort of individualism away whatsoever and make everything look corporatized? Because if that's the future, then it's not a future really worth looking forward to. But we see so many companies do this. And Cracker Barrel originally, what's crazy is they doubled down on their craziness. They said, oh yeah, well, what we're gonna do is this is what we believe is what our consumers want. There's just a very small vocal minority of individuals who don't agree with this rebrand. So basically we're gonna do what we want. That was the overarching message, right? But then you fast forward barely a few days later, and they're already starting to backtrack, right? And then they ultimately had to scrap the plan whatsoever. And bear in mind, these companies don't make these decisions overnight. They invest a lot of money, a lot of resources into a lot of people, think tanks or marketing initiatives or marketing directors, so on and so forth, because they ultimately want these marketing campaigns to be successful. So the fact of the matter is they essentially wasted all this money, all these resources to literally end up back at square one because enough people raised their voices and said, we're not going to support another company. Ultimately, you can use the term going woke or whatever the case may be, but that's the reason why so many people had an issue with Cracker Barrel's new rebrand. Now, we're going to see this happen again because ultimately these companies never really learn their lessons. These companies ultimately think that they can do whatever they want. And essentially the consumer's just the one who's going to have to suck it up and deal with it. But what encourages me is that so many consumers are actually starting to find their voices for the first time in many cases. And they're beginning to say, I'm not going to just go along with whatever corporations think they want for me. I ultimately can dictate their success, and I can choose to support or not support these companies moving forward. It's a very positive trend that hopefully continues because, like I said, this is not going to be the last time something like this happens. So I'm curious what your thoughts might be about the situation. I've been a Cracker Barrel fan myself. I haven't quite decided if I'm going to go back just yet. And honestly, that also begs the question, when is boycotting gone too far? When is it necessary? When should we do it? When should we not do it? Different question for a different day, obviously. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on the situation. I'm happy that the company realized their misstep, and I'm just hopeful that they at least will learn from their mistakes and have other companies do similarly in the future. But those are my thoughts, and I'm hopeful you agree.